Vampire King's baby bit the waitress's sleeve. Everyone panicked, but she tugged back with a smile. The storm hit without warning. Lena had seen maybe 3 customers all evening, and now the tavern was packed wall to wall with travelers desperate to escape the downpour. Water streamed through the doorway every time someone stumbled inside, and the fire in the hearth sputtered and hissed against the sudden cold. "More bread for table 7, her boss shouted from the kitchen. "Already on it," Lena called back, balancing 3 mugs and a plate on her arms. She'd been working at the Crossroads Tavern for 2 years now, and she could navigate the chaos blindfolded if she had to. The crowd tonight was strange, though. Tense. People whispered more than they talked, and several travelers kept their hoods up even indoors. Lena had learned not to ask questions. The Crossroads sat on the border between 3 territories, and plenty of folks passed through who didn't want to be remembered. She delivered the bread and turned toward the corner table, the quiet one tucked beside the cold stone wall where a lone traveler sat with his back to the room. He hadn't ordered food, just water, and he'd been sitting there for over an hour with a bundle in his arms that occasionally squirmed. Lena approached carefully, her smile practiced and professional. "Refill, sir?" The man didn't look up. His hood shadowed most of his face, but she caught a glimpse of sharp cheekbones and pale skin. Too pale, even for someone who'd been traveling in the rain. "Please," he said quietly. Lena poured the water, her eyes flickering to the bundle. It shifted again, and she heard a soft, unhappy whimper. A baby. Her heart softened immediately. Rough night for traveling with a little one. "You have no idea," the man muttered. The baby whimpered again, louder this time, and the man shifted awkwardly, trying to rock the bundle. He looked exhausted. No, beyond exhausted. There was something hollow in the way he held himself, like he'd been carrying a weight for far too long. Lena hesitated. She wasn't supposed to linger. Her boss hated when she chatted with customers. But the baby's cries were getting louder, and people were starting to glance over. "Want me to hold her for a second?" Lena offered. Sometimes babies just need a different set of arms. The man finally looked up and Lena froze. His eyes were silver. Not gray, silver, like polished coins catching moonlight. And they were sharp, ancient, far too knowing for someone who looked barely 30. "That's kind of you," he said slowly, "but I don't think that's wise." The baby wailed. The man winced and adjusted his grip, but the crying only got worse. Several customers were actively staring now, and Lena could see her boss poking his head out of the kitchen with a scowl. "Look, I've got 6 younger siblings," Lena said, leaning down with her best reassuring smile. "I promise I won't drop her. Just let me try." She reached for the cup to refill it again, and that's when it happened. A tiny hand shot out from the bundle and latched onto Lena's sleeve. Then the baby bit down. Not hard, not enough to hurt, but Lena felt the pressure of tiny gums clamping onto the fabric near her wrist, and her whole body went cold. Because she saw the teeth. Small, white, sharp, fangs. The tavern erupted. Vampire. Chairs screeched. Mugs shattered. Half the crowd bolted for the door while the other half scrambled for weapons, knives, clubs, anything they could grab. "Get away from it," someone screamed. Lena's heart hammered in her chest. She should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to pull away, to get as far from the baby as possible. But she didn't. Instead, she looked down at the tiny creature clinging to her sleeve, and what she saw wasn't a monster. It was just a baby. A scared, fussy baby with big, tear-filled eyes that glowed faintly amber in the firelight. Lena tugged her sleeve back gently, her smile soft and instinctive. "Hey now. That's not very nice, little 1-inch." The baby blinked. And then, impossibly, she stopped crying. The silence that followed was deafening. The baby stared up at Lena with wide, curious eyes, her tiny fingers still clutching the fabric. Then she let out a soft, happy coo and nuzzled closer, like Lena was the only safe thing in the world. The man in the cloak went rigid. No, he whispered. That's not possible. Lena glanced at him, confused. What's not possible? He didn't answer. He was staring at the baby with an expression Lena couldn't quite read, shock, fear, and something that looked almost like grief. Around them, the tavern remained frozen. No one knew what to do. A vampire baby had just bitten a human girl, and instead of chaos, there was peace. She's never done that before, the man said, his voice barely audible. Not with anyone. Not even, he stopped himself, jaw tightening. Lena looked back at the baby, who was now happily gripping her sleeve with both hands, making soft little sounds of contentment. Well, Lena said carefully, maybe she just likes me. The man finally stood, and Lena realized just how tall he was. He towered over her, and when he pushed his head back, she saw the full weight of those silver eyes. We need to talk, he said. Outside. Now. I'm working. Now, he repeated, and there was a command in his voice that made her knees weak. Her boss shouted something from across the room, but Lena barely heard it. The baby was still clinging to her, and the man, whoever he was, looked like he'd just seen a ghost.
Fine, Lena whispered.
But you're explaining what's going on. The man's expression darkened. You won't believe me. Try me. He glanced down at his daughter one more time, and Lena saw something flicker in his eyes.
Fear.
Not of her. For her. My name is Darian, he said quietly.
And what just happened?
It hasn't happened in 400 years. Lena swallowed hard. What are you talking about? Darian looked at her like she'd just signed her own death warrant. My daughter, he said, just chose you as her protector. The rain hammered against the wooden walls of the tavern as Darian led Lena around back, away from the panicked crowd still scrambling inside. The baby, Mira, he'd called her, remained impossibly calm in Lena's arms, her tiny fingers wrapped around Lena's sleeve like it was the only thing anchoring her to the world. Lena's mind raced. Protector? What did that even mean? You need to give her back, Lena said, trying to sound firm even though her hands were shaking. I don't know what you think just happened in there, but I'm just a waitress. I serve drinks. I clean tables. I don't do this. Darian stopped beneath the tavern's narrow overhang, the only shelter from the storm. He turned to face her, and in the dim light spilling from the tavern windows, Lena saw his expression clearly for the first time. He looked devastated. I wish it were that simple, he said quietly. Believe me, I do. Lena took a step back, clutching Mira closer. The baby cooed softly, completely unbothered by the tension radiating between the two adults. Explain it then, Lena demanded. What's a protector? And why are you looking at me like I just got cursed? Darian's jaw tightened. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at his daughter with an expression that might have been regret. Finally, he spoke. 4 centuries ago, there was a bloodline. Humans born with something different. A resonance. They were drawn to vampire royalty and royalty to them. When the connection formed, it created a bond, a supernatural link that made them the perfect guardians. Protectors, he paused, his silver eyes locking onto hers. They were faster, stronger, more intuitive than ordinary humans. They could sense danger before it struck. And they would die before letting harm come to the one they were bound to. Lena's stomach dropped.
The
line went extinct, Darian continued, ignoring her interruption. Wiped out during the purge, when the old vampire courts fear their power. No protector has been born in 400 years. We thought the magic was gone forever. Then you're wrong, Lena said quickly. Because I'm not magic. I'm just me. I grew up in a village. I serve soup. I've never done anything extraordinary in my entire life. Babies don't lie, Darian said simply. He nodded toward Mira, who was now playing with a strand of Lena's hair, completely content. She's never responded to anyone like this. Not servants. Not nobles. Not even other vampires trained specifically to care for royal children. She screams if anyone else touches her. But you. His voice softened. She's calm. Happy. That's not coincidence. Lena looked down at the baby, and her heart twisted. Myra's amber eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, but there was no malice in them. Just trust. Pure, absolute trust. This is insane, Lena whispered. I know. You're telling me I'm supposed to, what? Protect her? Forever? Darian hesitated, and Lena saw the conflict flash across his face. The bond doesn't form unless both sides accept it. Mira has chosen you. But you, he exhaled slowly. You can still walk away. If you leave now, before the bond solidifies, she'll survive. She'll be miserable, but she'll survive. Lena's throat tightened. And if I don't leave, then your life changes, Darian said bluntly. You'll be bound to her.
To me.
To a world you don't understand and didn't ask for. You'll have enemies you've never met. Dangers you can't imagine, his voice dropped. And one day, you might die for her. The words hung in the air like a blade. Lena should have run. Every rational part of her brain screamed at her to hand the baby back, go inside, and pretend this night never happened. But when she looked down at Mira, the baby smiled. It was a tiny, toothless smile, well, except for those two little fangs, and it shattered something inside Lena's chest. She's just a baby, Lena said softly. She's the heir to a kingdom, Darian corrected. And that makes her a target. Lena's head snapped up. You're a king? Darian's expression was unreadable. Does that change anything? Honestly, Lena didn't know. An hour ago, her biggest worry was whether the chicken stew would last through the dinner rush. Now she was standing in the rain, holding a vampire princess, talking to a king about magical bonds and ancient bloodlines. It was absurd. It was terrifying. And yet, Mira grabbed her sleeve again, and Lena felt something stir deep in her chest. Not magic, at least she didn't think so. Just an overwhelming, inexplicable certainty that she couldn't let this baby go. I don't understand any of this, Lena said finally. But I'm not going to just abandon her. Not tonight. Not when She gestured helplessly at Mira, who was now yawning. Not when she's like this. Darian studied her for a long moment, his silver eyes searching her face like he was trying to see into her soul. You're sure? He asked quietly. No, Lena admitted. But I'm not leaving her. Something flickered in Darian's expression, relief, maybe, or grief. Possibly both. Then we need to go, he said. Now. Lena blinked. Go? Go where? Away from here. Darian glanced back toward the tavern, his posture suddenly tense. There were others inside. Vampires. They recognized me. And once they realize what you are, he trailed off. But the implication was clear. Lena's blood ran cold. They'll come after me. They'll come after her, Darian corrected. And you'll be in the way. Before Lena could respond, Mira let out a soft whimper and pressed closer to her chest, like she could sense the danger too. Darian's expression hardened. We leave in 5 minutes. Get whatever you need. Don't talk to anyone. But my job is over, Darian said flatly. Your old life? It's over. The moment she bit you, everything changed. Lena wanted to argue. She wanted to scream that this wasn't fair, that she hadn't chosen this. But when she looked at Mira, she knew it was already too late. She was in this now. And there was no going back. Lena didn't go back inside. She couldn't face her boss, couldn't explain why she was leaving in the middle of a shift with a vampire king and his baby. So she simply stood in the rain, clutching Mira close, and waited while Darian retrieved a small leather bag from somewhere in the shadows. That's all you have? She asked, eyeing the single bag. We travel light, Darian said. Easier to disappear that way. The word disappear sent a chill down Lena's spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain soaking through her clothes. They moved quickly through the muddy streets of the border town, keeping to the edges where the lamplight didn't reach. Mira had fallen asleep against Lena's shoulder, her tiny body warm and trusting. It felt surreal. An hour ago, Lena had been worried about burnt bread and difficult customers. Now she was fleeing into the night with royalty she didn't understand. "Where are we going?" Lena whispered. "There's an inn on the North Road," Darian said, his eyes constantly scanning the darkness. "We'll stop there until dawn. Then we move again. And after that, we keep moving." It wasn't much of a plan, but Lena didn't have a better one. The inn was small and shabby, the kind of place that didn't ask questions as long as you paid in advance. Darian secured 2 rooms, one for himself, one for Lena and Mira. The innkeeper barely glanced at them before pocketing the coins and shuffling back to bed. Lena's room was sparse, a narrow bed, a cracked wash basin, and a window that didn't quite close all the way. She laid Mira down carefully on the bed, surrounding her with pillows so she wouldn't roll off, and then collapsed into the wooden chair by the window. Her hands were still shaking. What am I doing? She'd left everything.
Her job.
Her small rented room above the tavern. The life she'd built over 2 years of hard work. And for what? A baby who'd bitten her sleeve. But even as doubt crept in, Lena found herself watching Mira sleep. The baby's face was peaceful, her tiny chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. She looked so normal, fragile even. Not like the monster everyone in the tavern had feared. A soft knock at the door made Lena jump. "It's me," Darian's voice came from the other side. Lena opened the door a crack. Darian stood in the hallway, his hood pulled low again, his expression unreadable. "She's asleep," Lena said quietly. "Good," Darian hesitated, then added. "You should rest too. We leave before sunrise." Lena nodded, about to close the door, when she heard voices downstairs. They were trying to be quiet, but sound carried in the old building. Low, urgent voices speaking in a language Lena didn't recognize. Darian's entire body went rigid. "Get back inside," he said, his voice dropping to barely a whisper. "Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." "What's happening?" "Now, Lena." The command in his voice left no room for argument. Lena stepped back into the room, and Darian pulled the door shut. She heard his footsteps fade down the hallway, moving toward the stairs. Her heart hammered as she turned the lock. For several long minutes, there was only silence. Then voices drifted up again, clearer now, speaking in the common tongue. "Your Majesty." The voice was smooth, cultured, and laced with something that made Lena's skin crawl. "We did not expect to find you in such humble accommodations." "Lord Varen," Darian's voice was cold. "What brings you to the border territories?" "Oh, you know. Business. Trade routes." The usual a pause. "Though I must say, the rumors we heard at the tavern were far more interesting than any trade deal." Lena pressed her ear against the door, straining to hear. "Rumors are often exaggerated," Darian said evenly. "Are they?" Another voice joined in, a woman's, sharp and calculating. "Because witnesses claim your daughter bit a human girl. And that the girl didn't run, didn't scream,
Simply
smiled." Silence. Then the woman spoke again, and Lena heard the undercurrent of shock beneath her composed tone. "The protector line is extinct, Your Majesty. Has been for centuries. Surely this is just coincidence. A baby's tantrum. Nothing more." "Of course," Darian said. "My daughter is teething. She bites everything. Then you won't mind if we meet this girl?" Lord Varen's voice was closer now, like he'd moved toward the stairs. "Just to confirm there's nothing unusual about her." "She's sleeping," Darian said, and there was steel in his voice now. "And she's under my protection. You will not disturb her." "Your protection," the woman repeated slowly. How curious. A king personally protecting a tavern waitress. The air downstairs seemed to thicken with tension. "Lady Saris," Darian said softly, dangerously. "Lord Varen, I suggest you continue on your way. There's nothing for you here." For a moment, Lena thought they might argue, might push past him and come up the stairs anyway. Then Lord Varen laughed, a cold, humorless sound. As you wish, Your Majesty. But you should know. The council will hear of this. If a protector truly has awakened, he paused meaningfully.
Well,
That changes everything, doesn't it? Lena heard footsteps retreating. The front door opened and closed. Then silence. She waited, barely breathing, until she heard Darian's footsteps returning up the stairs. A quiet knock. It's me. Lena unlocked the door. Darian stepped inside, his face grim. Who were they? Lena asked. Vampire nobles. Powerful ones. Darian glanced at Mira, still sleeping peacefully. They're heading back to the capital now, which means we have maybe 3 days before the entire court knows about you. And that's bad. Darian's expression was answer enough. Pack light, he said quietly. We leave in an hour, before they decide to come back with reinforcements. Lena's stomach twisted. I thought you said dawn. Plans change. Darian moved toward the door, then paused. Lena, what those nobles said about the protector line changing everything. They're right. If word spreads that you exist, there will be those who want to use you, and those who want you dead. Why? Lena whispered. I haven't done anything. Darian looked back at her, and for the first time, she saw something like pity in his silver eyes. You don't have to do anything, he said. You just have to exist. And that's enough to threaten an empire. Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone with a sleeping baby and the terrifying realization that her life would never be simple again. She looked down at Mira. The baby stirred, reaching out in her sleep until her tiny hand found Lena's finger and gripped it tight. And despite everything, the fear, the uncertainty, the danger, Lena held on. They traveled through the night like ghosts. Darian led them along forgotten paths that wound through dense forest, away from the main roads where patrols might spot them. Lena stumbled more than once, exhausted and unused to this kind of travel, but every time she faltered, Darian was there, a steady hand at her elbow, a quiet warning about roots or rocks in the darkness. Mira slept through most of it, bundled against Lena's chest in a makeshift sling Darian had fashioned from his cloak. But whenever Lena tried to hand her over, tried to give her aching arms a rest, the baby would wake instantly and begin to fuss. She won't settle, Lena said after the third attempt, frustrated and tired. Maybe if you just hold her for a few minutes. Try, Darian said simply. So Lena did. She passed Mira to Darian, and within seconds, the baby's face crumpled. A whimper became a cry, then a wail that echoed through the trees. Okay. Lena took her back quickly, and Mira quieted immediately, nuzzling into her shoulder with a contented sigh. Darian's expression was unreadable. The bond is already forming. She needs you close. What happens if I'm not? Lena asked, though part of her didn't want to know the answer. Darian was quiet for a long moment. She'll weaken.
stop eating.
Eventually, he didn't finish the sentence. Lena's arms tightened around Mira. That's not fair. She's just a baby. She shouldn't need me this much. Protectors aren't chosen by logic, Darian said. The bond recognizes something. A resonance. A match. He glanced at her. Whether we understand it or not doesn't change what it is. By the time dawn broke, they'd reached Embercross, a bustling market town nestled in a valley where 3 rivers met. It was larger than anywhere Lena had ever been, with cobblestone streets and buildings that rose 3 stories high. Merchants were already setting up stalls, and the smell of fresh bread and roasted meat filled the air. Lena's stomach growled loudly.
We'll find an inn, Darian said.
Get food and supplies. But we can't stay long. They found a room at a modest establishment called the River's Bend. The innkeeper, a cheerful woman with flour in her hair, cooed over Mira and didn't ask any uncomfortable questions about the odd trio. Once they were settled, Darian left to gather supplies, and Lena was finally alone with Mira in the daylight. The baby was awake now, her amber eyes tracking everything with curious intensity. In the sunlight streaming through the window, Lena could see her more clearly. The way her pale skin almost seemed to glow, the tiny points of her fangs when she yawned, the impossible color of her eyes. "You're really something, aren't you?" Lena murmured, brushing a finger across Myra's soft cheek. Mira grabbed her finger and tried to bite it. No, Lena said, gently tugging free. "We don't bite people. That's what got us into this mess." But even as she said it, Lena felt that strange pull in her chest again. That instinct that said protect, keep safe, stay close. It was getting stronger, more insistent. Was this the bond Darian talked about? Or was she just getting attached to a baby who desperately needed someone? Lena didn't know anymore. When Darian returned, his arms were full of packages. He'd bought bread, cheese, dried meat, and, to Lena's surprise, a small cloth doll and several brightly colored wooden toys. "For her," he said, setting them on the bed. "She's been through enough.
She should have something
normal." Lena picked up the doll, touched by the unexpected gesture. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, I did." Darian's voice was quiet. "She's my daughter, and I've failed her enough already." There was so much pain in those words that Lena didn't know how to respond. Instead, she offered Mira the doll, and the baby immediately grabbed it with both hands, studying it with intense fascination. "She likes it," Lena said softly. "Good." They ate in comfortable silence, and for a brief moment, Lena could almost pretend this was normal. Just 3 people sharing a meal. Not a king, a protector, and a baby who could reshape kingdoms. But reality crashed back when Darian stiffened suddenly, his head turning toward the window. "What is it?" Lena asked. "Someone's asking about us downstairs," he said quietly. "About a man traveling with a woman and a baby." Lena's blood ran cold. Already. Word travels fast in market towns. Darian stood, moving to the window and peering down at the street below. "We need to leave.
now."
But we just got here. And now we're leaving." His tone left no room for argument. "Pack the food. I'll handle the rest." As Lena scrambled to gather their meager belongings, she heard voices drifting up from the street. Curious voices. Suspicious voices. People talking about the strange travelers at the river's bend. About how the baby had vampire eyes. About the reward for information leading to vampire sympathizers. Mira, sensing the tension, began to whimper. "Sure, it's okay," Lena whispered, holding her close. "We're okay." But she didn't believe it. And judging by Darian's expression, neither did he. They slipped out through the inn's back entrance, moving quickly through narrow alleys that smelled of fish and rotting vegetables. Behind them, Lena heard shouts. Someone had noticed their departure. "This way," Darian said, leading them toward the river. "Where are we going?" "Anywhere but here." They crossed the bridge at a run, Lena clutching Mira tight as they wove through market stalls and startled merchants. Someone grabbed at Lena's arm, shouting about vampires, but Darian was there instantly, his presence somehow making the man stumble back in fear. They didn't stop running until they reached the forest on the far side of town, the sounds of pursuit finally fading behind them. Lena collapsed against a tree, gasping for breath. Mira was crying now, frightened by the chaos, and Lena tried desperately to soothe her while her own heart hammered in her chest. "I'm sorry," Darian said, and he actually sounded it. "I didn't think they'd find us so quickly." "How did they know?" Lena demanded between gasps. "How did they know where we were?" Darian's expression darkened. "The nobles from last night. They must have sent word ahead. Set watchers in every town along this route. So, what do we do?" Darian looked at her, then at Mira, and Lena saw the weight of impossible choices in his silver eyes. "We stop running," he said finally. "And we go to the one place they can't easily reach us." "Where?" Darian's jaw tightened. "Home. The capital. Waitress." Lena stared at him. "You want to take me into the vampire kingdom? Where all your enemies are?" "Where all my allies are too," Darian corrected. "It's the only place I can protect you both. Here in the borderlands, we're exposed. But in Waitress, in my own palace," he trailed off. "It's a risk, but it's the best option we have." Lena looked down at Mira, who had finally stopped crying and was now staring up at her with those impossibly trusting eyes. She thought about everything she'd lost in the past day.
Her job.
Her home. Her simple, predictable life. And she thought about what she'd gained. This tiny, impossible creature who needed her more than anyone ever had. Okay, Lena said quietly. Let's go to Waitress. Darian nodded once, relief flickering across his face. Then we leave at nightfall, he said. And pray we make it there alive. They stayed hidden in the forest until dusk, taking turns keeping watch while the other rested. Mira remained fussy, refusing to eat the mashed bread Lena tried to feed her, and by the time darkness fell, the baby's skin felt too warm. Something's wrong, Lena said, pressing her palm to Myra's forehead. She's burning up. Darian's face went pale, paler than usual. He touched his daughter's cheek, and Lena saw genuine fear flash in his silver eyes. We need to find a keeper, he said abruptly. A what? Someone who knows the old magic. The old laws. Darian was already gathering their things, moving with sudden urgency. There's one in Embercross. Hidden. If we're careful, we can reach him without being seen. Lena wanted to argue that going back into town was madness, but Mira let out a weak cry that made the decision for her. They moved through the darkened streets like shadows, Darian leading them through passages Lena hadn't noticed before, servants' alleys and forgotten paths between buildings. The market was closed now, the stalls shuttered, but lanterns still glowed in windows above, casting pools of amber light onto the cobblestones. Darian stopped before a narrow building wedged between a blacksmith shop and a closed bakery. The sign above the door read, Ashton's Books and Antiquities, but the windows were dark. Stay here, Darian said. If anything happens, run for the forest. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you. You're not leaving her, Darian corrected, nodding at Mira. That's all that matters. Before Lena could respond, he slipped through the door. The minutes stretched like hours. Lena stood in the shadows, rocking Mira gently, whispering soft reassurances that she didn't feel. The baby's breathing had become shallow, and her usual curiosity had been replaced by a listless exhaustion that terrified Lena more than any pursuing noble. Finally, the door opened again. Darian emerged with an elderly man, thin, stooped, with white hair that fell past his shoulders and eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Inside, the old man said, quickly. The shop was cramped and dusty, filled floor to ceiling with books, scrolls, and strange artifacts that Lena couldn't identify. The old man, Ashton, she assumed, led them to a back room where a single candle burned on a wooden table. He took one look at Mira, and his expression grew grave. Lay her down, he said, gesturing to the table. Lena hesitated, her arms tightening around the baby instinctively. It's all right, Ashton said gently. I mean her no harm, but I need to see her clearly. Reluctantly, Lena laid Mira on the table. The baby whimpered, reaching for her, and Lena had to force herself to step back. Ashton leaned close, his glowing eyes studying Mira with an intensity that made Lena uncomfortable. He touched the baby's forehead, her chest, then her tiny hand. When Myra's fingers wrapped around his, he went very still. Impossible, he whispered. That's what I said, Darian muttered. Ashton looked up at Lena, and there was wonder in his ancient eyes. You're the one she chose? Lena nodded, not trusting her voice. Come here, child. Lena approached cautiously. Ashton took her hand and placed it over Myra's heart. Immediately, the baby calmed, her breathing steadying, some color returning to her pale cheeks. You see, Ashton said, the bond sustains her, but it's incomplete. New. Unstable, he released Lena's hand and turned to Darian. When did this happen? 2 nights ago. And you've tried to separate them? Only for moments. Ashton shook his head slowly. That's why she's sick. The bond is trying to solidify, but every separation weakens it. Weakens them both, he fixed Darian with a hard stare. You know what this means. Darian's jaw tightened. I know. Then you understand the choice before you. What choice? Lena demanded, looking between them. What are you talking about? Ashton studied her for a long moment, then sighed. Come with me. He led them deeper into the shop, to a section hidden behind a heavy curtain. Here, the books were older, bound in leather that looked ready to crumble. Ashton pulled one from the shelf, a massive tome with a cover inscribed with symbols Lena didn't recognize. He opened it carefully, flipping through pages filled with elegant script and detailed illustrations. Finally, he stopped on a page showing a woman standing before a child, both figures surrounded by intricate patterns of light. The protector bond, Ashton said, his finger tracing the illustration. A connection between souls.
Rare.
Powerful. And, according to this, he turned the page, revealing more text. Fated. Fated how? Lena asked, though dread was already pooling in her stomach. Ashton's expression was sorrowful. Every protector in recorded history has died defending their charge. It's not a curse. It's simply what the bond demands. Complete devotion. Ultimate sacrifice. The words hit Lena like a physical blow. That's not. She looked at Darian. You knew this. You knew and you didn't tell me. I told you it was dangerous, Darian said quietly. I told you that you could die. You didn't tell me it was guaranteed. It's not guaranteed, Ashton interjected. It's just extremely likely. The bond compels protectors to put their charge's life before their own. Always. Without hesitation, he closed the book gently. I've studied these records for decades. I've never found a protector who died of old age. Lena felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. She looked at Mira, still lying on the table, her tiny chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm now that Lena was close. There has to be another way, Lena said desperately. What if we break the bond? Before it's complete? You'd kill her, Ashton said bluntly. The bond has already rooted too deeply. Myra's life is tied to yours now. If you leave, if you reject it, she'll fade within days. But if I stay, you live for her. And, eventually, you die for her. The room fell silent except for Myra's soft breathing. Darian stood rigid by the door, his hands clenched into fists. There has to be something in those books. Something that shows a different path. I'll look, Ashton said, but his tone held little hope. But, Your Majesty, you need to prepare for the reality that this bond cannot be undone. It can only be accepted or rejected. And rejection means your daughter's death. Darian's face contorted with anguish. Then I've killed her. By bringing her to that tavern, by not leaving immediately. You gave her a chance to survive, Ashton said firmly. Without a protector, she wouldn't have lived much longer anyway. Royal children are fragile. They need this bond. It's why it exists. Lena barely heard them. She was staring at Mira, at this tiny creature who'd grabbed her sleeve and changed everything. She thought about the prophecy, about dying young, about never growing old, never having a family of her own, never living the quiet life she'd always imagined. Then Myra's eyes opened, amber and bright, and she smiled. Actually smiled, when she saw Lena's face. And Lena knew. She'd already made her choice. How do I make her better? Lena asked quietly. Ashton and Darian both turned to her. Lena, Darian began. How do I make her better? Lena repeated, her voice stronger now. What does she need? Ashton looked at her with something like respect. Proximity. Consistency. The bond needs time to stabilize, and that requires you to remain close to her. No more separations. Not even for a moment. Then that's what we'll do. Lena picked Mira up, and the baby immediately snuggled into her arms with a contented sigh. No more separations. Darian stared at her. You understand what you're choosing. I understand that she needs me, Lena said simply. And right now, that's enough. Ashton nodded slowly. Then you're already becoming what you were meant to be. Lena didn't feel like she was becoming anything except terrified. But as Myra's tiny hand gripped her finger, she knew there was no going back. She'd chosen this. And somehow, she'd find a way to survive it. We need to leave, Darian said finally. Get to Valoris before anyone else finds us. Ashton handed him a small leather pouch. Herbs for the baby. And this, he pulled out a silver pendant on a thin chain. For the protector. It won't change your fate, but it might help you survive long enough to shape it. Lena took the pendant, the metal cold against her palm. Thank you, she whispered. Ashton's smile was sad. I hope we meet again, child. Under better circumstances. But as they slipped back into the night, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that better circumstances were a luxury she'd never have again. They didn't stop until they were miles from Embercross, deep in a forest so thick that even the moonlight struggled to penetrate the canopy. Darian finally called for a rest in a small clearing beside a stream, and Lena collapsed onto a fallen log, her legs burning from the constant travel. Mira was asleep again, her fever broken, her breathing steady and peaceful. But Lena couldn't stop thinking about Ashton's words. Every protector in recorded history has died defending their charge. You're thinking too loud, Darian said from where he stood watch at the clearing's edge. Sorry if my impending death is distracting, Lena shot back, more harshly than she intended. Darian turned to face her, his silver eyes reflecting the starlight. I didn't want this for you. You know that, don't you? Does it matter what you wanted? Lena looked down at Mira. She chose me.
I chose to stay. And now I'm… what?
A walking sacrifice. You're a protector, Darian said quietly. He crossed the clearing and sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the unnatural cold that seemed to radiate from all vampires. That's not the same thing as a sacrifice, Ashton's book said. Ashton's book is 400 years old, Darian interrupted. Written by people who are long dead. You're not them, Lena. You don't have to follow their path. But the bond. The bond makes you want to protect her. It doesn't dictate how you live your life. Darian's voice softened. Or how long you live it. Lena wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. You said protectors were different. Stronger. Faster. More intuitive. She looked at her hands, ordinary, calloused from years of tavern work. I don't feel different.
I feel like me. Just.
More scared. Darian studied her for a moment. Tell me about your childhood. The question caught her off guard. What? Your childhood. Where you grew up. Your family. Lena frowned, confused by the change in subject. I grew up in Millbrook, a village 3 days south of the border. I'm the oldest of 7 children. My parents are farmers. I left when I was 16 because there wasn't enough food to go around, and she trailed off. Why does this matter? Humor me. Were there ever moments when you felt different? When things happened that you couldn't explain? Lena opened her mouth to say no, but stopped. Because there had been moments. When I was 8, she said slowly, there was a fire. In the barn. My little brother was inside, playing where he shouldn't have been. Everyone was screaming, running for water, but I just
knew.
I knew exactly where he was. I ran in, straight through the smoke, found him in seconds. She paused. My mother said it was luck. What else? When I was 12, a wild dog cornered my sister. Rabid, everyone said later. It should have attacked her. But I stepped between them, and just looked at it. And it backed away. Whimpering, Lena's throat tightened. And when I was 14, I got a fever that should have killed me. The village healer said I wouldn't survive the night. But I did. I woke up the next morning like nothing had happened. Darian nodded slowly. The magic was already there. Dormant. Waiting for something to activate it. Mira, Lena whispered. The bond doesn't create the magic, Darian explained. It awakens it. You were always meant to be a protector, Lena. You just didn't know it. The revelation should have felt momentous, but Lena just felt tired. So all those times I thought I was lucky or quick or just me, I was actually something else. Something I didn't even know existed. You were both, Darian said. The magic doesn't erase who you are. It just enhances it. Mira stirred in Lena's arms, and without thinking, Lena adjusted her hold, rocking gently. The baby settled immediately, her tiny hand finding Lena's sleeve again, that same spot she'd bitten in the tavern. "She's doing it again," Lena murmured. Darian leaned closer, watching. Then his eyes widened slightly. "Don't move."
What?
"Why?" "Just don't move." Lena froze. Myra's hand was glowing. Faintly, barely visible, but definitely glowing, a soft amber light that pulsed in time with the baby's heartbeat. And where her tiny fingers gripped Lena's sleeve, Lena felt warmth spreading through her arm, into her chest, settling somewhere deep inside. It didn't hurt.
It felt right.
Like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. "The bond is solidifying," Darian breathed. "I can see it." "What does that mean?" "It means she's claimed you fully. The magic is connecting you, making you stronger, faster, more attuned to her needs." He paused. "But it also means you're tied together now. Permanently." The glow faded, and Mira yawned, completely oblivious to what had just happened. But Lena felt it, a new awareness humming just beneath her skin. She could sense Myra's contentment, her tiredness, even her trust. It was like having another heartbeat inside her chest. "This is so strange," Lena whispered. "You'll get used to it." "Will I?" Lena looked at Darian. "Will I get used to knowing that somewhere out there, people want me dead because of what I am? Will I get used to running? To being hunted?" Darian's expression darkened. "When we reach Valoris, the running stops. I promise you that." "How can you promise that?" "Your own nobles want me gone. They said the council would hear about this. What if they decide I'm too dangerous to live? Then they'll have to go through me first." The fierceness in his voice surprised her. Darian was always so controlled, so measured. But now there was something raw in his expression, protective, almost savage. "She's my daughter," he continued quietly. "The last of my blood. The only family I have left. If you're what keeps her alive, then nothing, not the council, not the nobles, not the entire court, will touch you. I'll burn the capital to the ground first." Lena believed him. And that scared her almost as much as everything else. What happened to her mother? The question slipped out before Lena could stop it. "You said Mira is the last of your blood. Does that mean?" Darian's face went carefully blank. "My wife died in childbirth. 6 months ago." "I'm sorry." "So am I." He stood abruptly, moving back toward the clearing's edge. "We should rest. Dawn is still hours away, but we need to keep moving after that." He was closing off, pulling away, and Lena recognized the defense mechanism. She'd done the same thing countless times when customers at the tavern asked too many personal questions. But she also understood now why Darian was so desperate to protect Mira. The baby wasn't just his heir. She was all he had left. "Darian," Lena said softly. He paused but didn't turn around. "I won't let anything happen to her. I promise." For a long moment he said nothing. Then, quietly, "I know." And somehow Lena knew it was true. Not because of the bond or the magic or the prophecy. But because when she looked at Mira, this tiny, impossible creature who'd grab her sleeve and changed everything, she couldn't imagine a world where she wouldn't fight to keep her safe. Even if it killed her. Especially if it killed her. The pendant Ashton had given her felt heavy around her neck, but Lena didn't take it off. Instead, she held Mira closer and whispered a promise into the darkness. "I'll find a way to change the ending. I don't know how yet, but I will." Mira sighed contentedly in her sleep. And for the first time since that rainstorm at the tavern, Lena felt something other than fear. She felt purpose. 3 days of hard travel brought them to the Greyvale River, the last major barrier before vampire territory. The old stone bridge that crossed it was notorious, a choke point where border guards once collected tolls and travelers often disappeared without explanation. "We cross at dawn," Darian said, studying the bridge from the cover of the trees. "When the mist is thickest." Lena adjusted Mira in her arms, the baby awake and alert, those amber eyes watching everything with unnerving intelligence. Over the past few days, Lena had noticed changes in herself, small things at first. Her exhaustion had faded despite the grueling pace. Her hearing had sharpened. She could pick out sounds in the forest that she'd never noticed before. And twice, she'd sensed danger moments before it appeared, a loose branch overhead, a hidden sinkhole in their path. The magic was waking up. Something feels wrong, Lena said suddenly. Darian went still. What do you mean? I don't know.
Just.
Wrong. Lena scanned the bridge, the riverbanks, the mist rolling off the dark water. Everything looked normal, but her instincts screamed danger. Maybe we should wait. Find another crossing. There is no other crossing for 50 miles, Darian studied her face. But if you sense something, we listen. That's what protectors do. They feel threats before they materialize. Then I'm telling you something's wrong. They waited another hour, hidden in the trees, watching. Nothing moved on the bridge.
No travelers. No guards.
Just mist and silence. It's too quiet, Lena whispered. Darian nodded slowly. Agreed. But we can't stay here forever. Mira needs proper shelter, proper food. And every hour we delay, our enemies get closer to the capital with news of your existence. He was right. They'd been lucky so far, but luck didn't last forever. We go quickly, Darian decided. Stay close to me. If anything happens, I protect her. I know. They moved toward the bridge as dawn broke, the mist so thick Lena could barely see 10 feet ahead. The river rushed below, swollen with spring melt, its roar drowning out other sounds. Mira remained unnaturally quiet, as if she too sensed the danger. They were halfway across when Lena felt it, a spike of warning that made her skin prickle. Darian. The arrow came out of nowhere. Lena threw herself sideways on pure instinct, and the arrow whistled past her head, close enough that she felt the breeze of its passage. It struck the stone bridge with a sharp crack. Vampire's sympathizer, a voice roared from the mist. More arrows followed, and suddenly the bridge was chaos. Darian moved with impossible speed, his cloak billowing as he deflected projectiles Lena couldn't even see. But there were too many. They were surrounded. Dark shapes emerged from the mist. Men and women in leather armor, crossbows raised, silver stakes gleaming at their belts. Hunters. Professional vampire killers. The girl, one of them shouted. She's carrying the creature. Take her alive. Lena ran. She didn't think, didn't plan, just clutched Mira tight and ran back toward the trees. But the bridge was blocked. More hunters emerged from both ends, cutting off their escape. Nowhere to go, girl, a hunter said, advancing slowly. He was older, scarred, with eyes that held no mercy. Put down the vampire spawn, and we'll make it quick. Fight, and we'll make it hurt. She's a baby, Lena screamed. She's a monster, the hunter spat. And you're a traitor to your own kind. He raised his crossbow. Lena's world narrowed to that single point, the weapon aimed at Myra's tiny body. Something primal surged inside her, hot and fierce and ancient. She felt the pendant at her throat grow warm, felt the bond between her and Mira flare like a struck match. No! The word came out as a command, and power exploded from Lena's body. Light erupted around her, and Mira, brilliant, blinding, silver-white light that formed a shimmering barrier. The crossbow bolt struck the barrier and disintegrated. More arrows followed, and each one shattered against the protection magic crackling in the air. The hunters stumbled back, shielding their eyes. Lena stood frozen, staring at her own hands. They were glowing, actually glowing, with intricate patterns of light dancing across her skin like living tattoos. Impossible, the scarred hunter breathed. A real protector. I thought they were extinct. So did I, another hunter whispered, and now there was fear in his voice. Darian appeared at Lena's side, blood on his cloak, his silver eyes fierce. You have 3 seconds to leave before I kill every one of you. You can't kill us all, vampire, the scarred hunter said, but his bravado was cracking. There are dozens of us. And he pointed at Lena. She won't be able to hold that barrier forever. She doesn't even know what she's doing.
He was right.
Lena could already feel the magic draining her, like water pouring through her fingers. The light was fading, flickering. But Darian smiled, a cold, terrible smile that made even the hunters hesitate. She doesn't need to hold it forever, he said softly. She just needs to hold it long enough. And then he moved. Lena had seen Darian fight before, quick, efficient, controlled. But this was different. This was a vampire king unleashed, centuries of power and rage poured into motion too fast for human eyes to follow. Hunters fell. Some fled. Those who tried to stand their ground found themselves facing something that moved like smoke and struck like lightning. Within minutes, the bridge was clear. Darian stood in the center of the carnage, breathing hard, one of the few times Lena had seen him show any sign of physical strain. Bodies lay scattered around him, and those hunters who'd survived were already disappearing into the forest. The barrier around Lena finally collapsed, and she staggered, suddenly exhausted. But Mira was safe, tucked against her chest, completely unharmed. You did it, Darian said, his voice filled with wonder. You actually manifested a protection barrier. I didn't mean to, Lena gasped. She was in danger, and I couldn't. That's how it works. Darian approached slowly, carefully, like she might spook. The magic responds to need.
To threat. You didn't think about it.
You just knew she needed protection, and your body responded. Lena looked at her hands. The glowing patterns had faded, but she could still feel the power humming beneath her skin, waiting to be called again. I felt it, she whispered. The bond. It was like Mira and I were the same person for a moment. I felt her fear.
Her trust.
Her absolute certainty that I would keep her safe. That's the life link, Darian said. You're truly connected now. She knows you'll protect her. And your magic knows it too. Mira cooed softly, reaching up to touch Lena's face with her tiny hand. There was no fear in the baby's eyes. Just love. Simple, absolute love. Lena's throat tightened. I couldn't let them hurt her. I know, Darian's expression softened. And now everyone else will know too. Those hunters will spread word that a real protector has awakened. That changes everything. Is that good or bad? Darian looked at the bodies scattered across the bridge, at the arrows still embedded in stone, at Lena standing in the center of it all with his daughter safe in her arms. I don't know yet, he admitted, but we're about to find out. They crossed the bridge quickly, leaving the dead behind. The mist was clearing now, and in the distance, Lena could see the landscape changing, trees growing darker, the sky taking on a perpetual twilight quality even though morning had come. Vampire territory. Welcome to my world, Darian said quietly. From here on, everything changes. Lena looked down at Mira, then at her own hands, ordinary again, but hiding extraordinary power. I think everything already changed, she said. Darian didn't argue, because they both knew she was right. The sky didn't just darken as they traveled deeper into vampire territory, it transformed. The sun became a pale ghost behind perpetual clouds, casting everything in shades of silver and shadow. The trees grew twisted and ancient, their branches reaching toward each other like gnarled fingers forming a canopy that blocked out most of the remaining light. But it was beautiful in a haunting way. Luminescent flowers bloomed along the roadside, glowing soft blue and violet. Strange birds with iridescent feathers called from the treetops. And in the distance, perched on a mountain of black stone, Valoris rose against the darkened sky like a crown of obsidian and crimson. Lena had never seen anything like it. The city was massive, built from dark stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Towers spiraled upward, connected by bridges that arched impossibly through the air. Crimson lanterns hung everywhere, thousands of them, casting the entire city in a blood-red glow that should have been sinister, but somehow felt oddly warm. "It's beautiful," Lena breathed, despite everything. "It's home," Darian said, but there was tension in his voice. "And it's about to become very dangerous for you." As they approached the main gate, guards appeared, vampires in dark armor with silver insignias on their chests. They knelt immediately when they saw Darian, their heads bowed. "Your Majesty," the captain said. "We weren't expecting your return so soon. The council was told you were conducting border inspections for another month." "Plans changed," Darian said curtly. "Prepare my private chambers. And send word to the council that I'll address them tomorrow night." "Of course, Your Majesty." The captain's eyes flickered to Lena and Mira, and his expression tightened almost imperceptibly. "Should we prepare additional accommodations?" "The human stays with me," Darian said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "In the royal wing. Full protection detail. No one enters without my explicit permission." The captain's jaw tightened, but he bowed. "As you command." They passed through the gate, and Lena felt dozens of eyes on her. Vampires lined the streets, pale, beautiful, predatory, and every single one of them stopped to stare. Whispers followed like a wave. "Is that a human? With a king? And she's holding the princess."
Impossible.
"Humans can't. Look at her neck. Look at the pendant. It can't be. The protector line is dead." Lena kept her head down, holding Mira close. The baby seemed fascinated by the glowing lanterns, reaching for them with tiny, grasping hands. "Don't let them intimidate you," Darian said quietly. "They can smell fear." "That's not helping," Lena muttered. Then fake confidence. "It's what I do half the time." Despite everything, Lena almost smiled. It was hard to imagine this powerful king faking anything, but the comment made him seem more
real.
Less like an untouchable monarch and more like a person trying to navigate an impossible situation. Just like her. The palace was even more impressive than the city, a sprawling complex of towers and courtyards, with walls of polished obsidian that reflected the crimson lantern light like mirrors. Servants moved through the halls like ghosts, silent and efficient, their eyes downcast. But when they saw Lena, they stared. Darian led her through a maze of corridors, up spiral staircases, across bridges that overlooked dizzying drops. Finally, he stopped before an ornate door carved with intricate patterns. "The royal wing," he said, pushing it open. "No one comes here without my permission. You'll be safe." The rooms beyond were stunning. High ceilings painted with murals of stars and moons. Furniture that looked ancient and priceless. A massive window overlooking the entire city. And in the corner, a smaller door that led to a nursery painted in soft silvers and blues. This was Darian's voice caught. This was meant for Mira. Before, when her mother was still. He didn't finish, but Lena understood. This room had been prepared for a family that no longer existed. "It's perfect," Lena said softly, carrying Mira to the nursery. There was a crib carved from dark wood, a rocking chair, shelves waiting for toys. "She'll love it here." Darian nodded but didn't enter the nursery. Instead, he stood in the doorway, watching as Lena gently laid Mira down. The baby fussed for a moment, but Lena stayed close, humming softly, and Mira settled. "You're good with her," Darian observed. "I have practice. Younger siblings, remember?" "It's more than that." Darian's expression was unreadable. "She trusts you completely. I've never seen her so calm." Before Lena could respond, a sharp knock echoed through the outer chamber. Darian's entire posture changed, becoming rigid and formal. "That was faster than I expected. Who is it?" "The council." He moved to answer the door, pausing to look back at Lena. "Stay here with Mira. Don't come out unless I call for you. And no matter what you hear, don't be afraid. I won't let them touch you." Lena's heart hammered. Darian. But he was already gone, closing the nursery door behind him. Lena pressed her ear against the wood, listening. "Your Majesty." The voice was female, cold, and dripping with authority. We need to speak about the situation. Lady Saris, Darian said evenly. I wasn't expecting the council until tomorrow. Yes, well, circumstances have forced our hand. Another voice joined in, male, older, with the weight of power behind it. We've received multiple reports, disturbing reports, about your traveling companion.
Her name is Lena, Darian said.
And she's under my protection, a human. Lady Saris spat the word like a curse. In the royal wing, carrying the princess. Your Majesty, this is unprecedented. Dangerous. The bloodline has never. The bloodline is whatever I say it is, Darian interrupted, and there was steel in his voice now. I'm the king. Or have you forgotten? Silence stretched taut as a wire. Then the older male voice spoke again, carefully. No one questions your authority, Your Majesty. But this girl, the rumors say she manifested protection magic, that your daughter has bonded with her, that she's a... Say it, Darian challenged. A protector, the man finished. A real one. Not a legend or a story, but an actual, living protector. Yes, Darian said simply. She is. The reaction was immediate. Multiple voices erupted at once, all talking over each other.
Impossible.
The line is extinct. This threatens everything we've built. Enough. Darian's command cut through the chaos. Mira was dying, fading. No caretaker we hired could help her. Then she chose Lena. And now she's healthy, thriving, alive. That's all that matters. What matters, Lady Saris said icily, is that protectors have historically held dangerous amounts of influence over royal decisions. They corrupt bloodlines. They introduce human weakness into vampire strength. Our ancestors eliminated them for good reason. Your ancestors, Darian corrected, slaughtered innocent people out of fear. I won't continue their mistakes. Then you'll destroy us all. Another voice said, younger, male, venomous. A human protector in the palace? She'll turn the princess against her own kind. Make her weak, sympathetic to humans. Is that what you want for your heir, Your Majesty? A princess who weeps for mortals. Lena's hands clenched into fists. She wanted to storm out there, to defend herself, but she remembered Darian's warning. Stay hidden. Stay safe. What I want, Darian said, and his voice dropped to something dangerous, is for my daughter to live. Everything else is secondary. If you have a problem with that, challenge me for the throne. Otherwise, Lena stays. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Lady Saris spoke. Very well, Your Majesty. We cannot challenge your decision. Not directly, a pause. But the council formally requests that this protector be evaluated, her abilities tested, her loyalty confirmed. We must know what we're dealing with. Fine, Darian said. Tomorrow night, the council chambers. But I set the terms. Acceptable. Footsteps retreated, and eventually the outer door closed. Lena sagged against the wall, her heart pounding. She heard Darian return to the nursery, and when he opened the door, his expression was grim. They hate me, Lena whispered. They fear you, Darian corrected. Which is worse. Fear makes people dangerous. What happens tomorrow? Darian looked at Mira, sleeping peacefully in her crib. They'll test you. Try to prove you're not really a protector, or that you're a threat, or that you're manipulating me somehow. His jaw tightened. But I won't let them hurt you. I swear it. Lena wanted to believe him. But as she looked out the window at Valoris spread below, beautiful and deadly, glowing with crimson light, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The real danger hadn't even started yet. Lena barely slept that night. Every shadow in the unfamiliar room felt like a threat. Every distant sound made her heart race. She kept Myra's crib pulled close to the bed, one hand always resting on the baby's back, feeling the steady rise and fall of her breathing. The bond hummed between them like a taut string, and Lena was learning to read its signals. Contentment felt like warmth spreading through her chest. Hunger was a gentle tug. Fear, though thankfully Mira hadn't experienced much of that yet, felt like ice water in her veins. When dawn came, or what passed for dawn in this perpetually darkened land, a knock sounded at the door. Lena tensed, but a familiar voice called out, "It's me." She opened the door to find Darian holding a tray of food. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept at all. "You didn't have to," Lena began. "The servants are gossiping," Darian said, entering and setting the tray on a low table. "If I let them serve you, you'd be poisoned by noon. Not fatally, probably. Just enough to make you sick for the council evaluation tonight." Lena's stomach dropped. They'd really do that. Some would. Others are merely curious. But I'm not taking chances. He gestured to the food, bread, cheese, fruit, and something that looked like honeyed porridge. "Everything here is from my personal stores. Safe." Lena sat slowly, realizing she was ravenous. She hadn't eaten properly in days. "Thank you." Darian moved to the nursery, checking on Mira, who was just beginning to wake. He picked her up with practiced ease, and Lena was struck again by the gentleness in his movements, such a contrast to the deadly king who'd cut down hunters on the bridge.
"She needs to eat too," Darian said.
"There's milk in the pitcher. Warm it slightly first." They fell into an oddly domestic routine, Lena eating while Darian tended to Mira, then switching so Lena could feed the baby while Darian explained what would happen that night. "The council consists of 7 members," he said. "The oldest and most powerful vampire families. They advise the throne, but they also check the king's power. Theoretically, anyway. And they want to test me? They want to discredit you. Prove you're either a fraud or a threat." Darian's expression darkened. "Lady Saris will lead the inquiry. She's the worst of them, ambitious, ruthless, and convinced that humans are inferior creatures who exist only to serve or feed vampires." "Comforting," Lena muttered. "Lord Marcus is more reasonable, but he's old and set in his ways. He'll be skeptical but fair. The others," Darian shrugged. "They'll follow whoever seems to be winning the argument." "What kind of tests?" "They'll try to provoke your magic. Put Mira in simulated danger to see if you react. Question your background, your motives, your loyalty." He paused. "They'll also try to prove that the bond isn't real. That you're just a human girl I'm keeping around for. Other reasons." Lena's face flushed. "That's disgusting." "That's politics." Darian's voice was weary. "They'll say anything to undermine you. The important thing is that you stay calm. Don't let them bait you into losing your temper." "And if I fail their tests?" Darian's jaw tightened. "You won't." But Lena heard what he didn't say. "Because if you do, they'll demand I remove you. And then Mira dies." The weight of it settled over her like a physical thing. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Darian left to attend to royal business, leaving Lena alone with Mira and 2 guards stationed outside the door, ostensibly for protection, but Lena suspected they were also there to watch her. She tried to stay occupied. Played with Mira. Read from the books on the shelves, histories of vampire kingdoms, mostly, written in flowing script that was hard to decipher. Stared out the window at the alien beauty of Valoris. Around midday, a servant came, a young vampire woman with dark hair and nervous eyes. "I'm sorry to disturb you," she said, keeping her gaze down. "But Lady Saris sent me to offer you assistance with your appearance for tonight." Lena frowned. "Assistance? A dress, perhaps? Cosmetics? You'll be appearing before the council," and the servant trailed off delicately. Lena looked down at her clothes, travel-stained, patched in several places, thoroughly unsuitable for any kind of formal occasion. She wanted to refuse out of spite, but then she thought about facing a room full of hostile vampire nobles while looking like a beggar.
"Fine," she said.
"Thank you." The servant returned an hour later with several dresses. They were beautiful, silk and velvet in deep jewel tones, but they were also clearly designed to make Lena look like a doll. Something pretty and harmless. Not a threat. Lena chose the simplest one, a deep midnight blue that didn't show too much skin, and refused the cosmetics entirely. She wasn't going to play dress-up for people who wanted her dead. When evening came, Darian returned with different clothes as well, formal robes in black and silver that made him look every inch the king. His expression was unreadable as he looked at Lena. "Ready?" he asked. "No," Lena admitted. "But I don't have a choice, do I?" "There's always a choice," Darian's voice softened. "You could leave.
Right now.
I'd arrange safe passage back to human lands. You'd lose the bond, and Mira would," he stopped. "But you'd be free." Lena looked at Mira, playing contentedly with the cloth doll Darian had bought in Embercross. The baby saw her looking and smiled, that pure, trusting smile that broke Lena's heart and stitched it back together all at once. "I'm not leaving," Lena said firmly. Darian nodded, something like relief flickering across his face. "Then let's go face the wolves." The council chambers were deep in the heart of the palace, down corridors that grew progressively darker and colder. Crimson lanterns cast dancing shadows on the walls, and Lena could feel the weight of centuries pressing down on her. The chamber itself was circular, with a high-domed ceiling painted with constellations that didn't match any sky Lena had ever seen. 7 thrones arranged in a semicircle, each occupied by a vampire who radiated power and age. Lady Sarah sat in the center, beautiful in the way a knife was beautiful, all sharp edges and cold precision. Her hair was white blonde, her eyes the color of ice, her smile predatory. "Your Majesty," she said as they entered.
"And the
"Protector. How interesting." Lena felt the weight of 7 ancient gazes settling on her. She wanted to run, to hide, to be anywhere but here. Instead, she held Mira closer and lifted her chin. "My name is Lena," she said clearly, "and I'm here because your princess chose me." Mira cooed, as if agreeing, and reached for the pendant at Lena's throat. Lady Sarah's smile sharpened. "We'll see about that." The evaluation had begun, and Lena had the terrible feeling she was already losing. The vampire to Lady Sarah's left, ancient, with gray hair and eyes like burnished gold, leaned forward. "Let us begin with a simple question.
girl.
Do you know what you are?" "I'm a protector," Lena said, proud that her voice didn't shake. "Are you?" Lord Marcus, it had to be him, studied her with unsettling intensity. "Or are you simply a human who happened to be kind to a crying baby?" "Kindness and magic are not the same thing." "I manifested a protection barrier," Lena said. "On the bridge. Hunters attacked and I—" "So you claim," Lady Saris interrupted. "But barriers can be faked. Illusions cast. Perhaps His Majesty himself created the barrier, and you simply took credit." "That's not what happened." "Prove it," another council member said, a woman with red hair and a cruel smile. "Show us this magic."
Right now.
"Create a barrier." Lena's mouth went dry. I can't just summon it on command. It responds to danger, to threat." "How convenient," Lady Saris purred. "Magic that only appears when no one can verify it." "I know what I saw," Darian said coldly. "She protected my daughter. That's enough." "With respect, Your Majesty," Lord Marcus said carefully, "a king's word is law. But the council must verify claims that could reshape our kingdom's future. If this girl truly is a protector, we need proof. Undeniable proof." Lady Sarah stood, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "I propose a test," she said. "A simple one. If the bond is real, the protector will do anything to keep the child safe. So, let us see." She gestured, and 2 guards entered, approaching Lena. "Wait." Lena backed away, clutching Mira. "Give them the child," Lady Saris commanded. "No." "Just for a moment," Lady Saris said, her voice honey-sweet. "We merely want to observe. Surely, if you trust His Majesty, you trust his guards." It was a trap. Lena knew it was a trap. But 7 pairs of ancient eyes watched her, waiting, and Darian's expression was anguished but resigned. They had to play by the council's rules.
At least for now.
No, Darian said, his voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. You don't touch my daughter. Not for any test. Lady Ceres's smile didn't waver. Your Majesty, we're not suggesting harm. Merely observation. Unless you believe your guards would endanger the princess. I believe you'd use any excuse to separate them, Darian countered. And I won't allow it. Lord Marcus raised a hand, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps a compromise. The girl claims the bond makes her protect the child. Very well. Let us test her instincts instead, he turned to Lena. Can you sense the princess's needs? Her emotions. Lena swallowed hard.
Yes.
Sometimes. Then tell us.
Right now.
What does she need? It was a trick question. It had to be. But Lena closed her eyes and focused on the bond, that invisible thread connecting her to Mira. She felt the baby's contentment, yes, but beneath it. She's tired, Lena said slowly, and a little hungry. But mostly she's confused. She can feel the tension in this room, and it's making her uneasy. As if on cue, Mira whimpered and pressed closer to Lena's shoulder. Several council members exchanged glances. Lucky guess, the red-haired woman muttered. Is it? Lord Marcus stood and approached slowly, his movements careful and non-threatening. May I? Lena's every instinct screamed no, but she forced herself to nod. Lord Marcus extended one finger toward Mira. The baby looked at him with those amber eyes, curious but wary. Then she grabbed his finger and immediately tried to bite it. Lord Marcus pulled back with a startled laugh. She has her father's spirit. She has her mother's temper, Darian said quietly. Lord Marcus returned to his throne, his expression thoughtful. The child shows no fear of vampires.
That's
unusual. Royal children typically sense the difference between their kind and humans. They're drawn to vampire caretakers, he looked at Lena. Yet she clings to you. Because the bond is real, Lena said. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know protectors existed a week ago. But Mira chose me, and I chose to stay. A pretty speech, Lady Ceres said coldly. But words mean nothing. I propose a month-long evaluation. The girl remains in the palace, under observation. We document everything, her abilities, her influence on the child, her loyalty to the throne. If she proves genuine, we acknowledge the bond. If not, she smiled, we find alternative arrangements. No, Darian said flatly. Your Majesty. No, he repeated, his silver eyes blazing. Lena isn't a prisoner to be observed and judged. She's under my protection. This evaluation is over. The council erupted in protest, but Darian silenced them with a gesture. I've made my decision. This session is adjourned. He turned and walked out, and after a moment's hesitation, Lena followed, clutching Mira close. Behind them, she heard Lady Ceres's voice, sharp with fury. This isn't over, Your Majesty. The council will not be silenced. But Darian didn't look back. They returned to the royal wing in tense silence. Once inside, Darian paced like a caged animal, his usual control fraying at the edges. They'll undermine us at every turn, he said finally. Find ways to make your life miserable until you leave voluntarily. That's how they operate. I'm not leaving, Lena said stubbornly. I know, Darian stopped pacing and looked at her. Which means we need to prepare you. Really prepare you. If you're going to survive here, you need to understand your abilities. Master them.
How?
I barely know what I can do. Darian was quiet for a moment, then made a decision. Wait here. He left, and Lena sank into a chair, exhausted. Mira had finally fallen asleep, worn out by the evening's tension, and Lena carefully laid her in the crib before collapsing onto the bed. She must have dozed off, because when she woke, there was someone else in the room. An old man sat in the chair by the window, impossibly old, with white hair that fell past his shoulders and skin like parchment. But his eyes were sharp and knowing, and when he looked at Lena, she felt seen in a way that made her uncomfortable. Don't be alarmed, he said in a voice that creaked like old wood. Darian sent for me. Who are you? My name is Corvin, the old man smiled, and Lena saw the fangs. I'm a relic, a survivor. And a very long time ago, I was bonded to a protector. Lena sat up slowly. You knew one. I was raised by one, Corvin corrected. My protector's name was Elena. She saved my life when I was a child during the Purge, hid me, raised me among humans until I was old enough to return to vampire society. His expression grew distant. She died defending me when I was 16. And I've spent the last 300 years trying to honor her memory. Lena's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. She chose her path. Just as you're choosing yours, Corvin leaned forward. Darian thinks I can help you. Teach you what Elena taught me about the bond. About the magic. Can you? I can try, Corvin stood, moving with surprising grace for someone so old. But first, you need to understand something. The bond isn't just about protection. It's about balance. I don't understand. Protectors don't just shield their charge from harm. They balance them, ground them. Corvin gestured to the window, to Valoris spread below. Vampires are creatures of extremes. We feel everything more intensely: rage, love, hunger, grief. Royal vampires especially. Without balance, without something to anchor them to compassion and restraint, they become monsters. Lena thought about Darian, his carefully controlled emotions, his cold efficiency, the brief flashes of warmth she'd seen when he looked at Mira. You're saying Mira needs me to stay human? I'm saying she needs you to help her remember what it means to care, Corvin said. To value life beyond power and politics. That's what Elena did for me. She taught me that strength wasn't just about domination. It was about protection.
Choice.
Sacrifice. The word sacrifice made Lena flinch. Corvin noticed. You've heard the prophecy. That protectors die for their charges. Ashton said every protector in history died defending their bonded. That's not quite accurate. Corvin's smile was sad. Elena died defending me, yes. But she didn't die because the bond demanded it. She died because she chose to. There's a difference. Is there? Lena asked bitterly. If the bond makes you want to protect someone more than yourself, is it really a choice? The bond amplifies what's already there, Corvin said. Elena loved me. She would have protected me with or without magic. The bond just gave her the power to do it more effectively. He paused. And you, Lena, would you protect Mira even without the bond? Lena looked at the crib where Mira slept, tiny and vulnerable and trusting. Yes, she admitted. I would. Then the bond hasn't changed who you are. It's just revealed it. The words settled over Lena like a blanket, uncomfortable but necessary. So what do I do? She asked. How do I learn to control this? We start tomorrow, Corvin said. Before dawn. I'll teach you what Elena taught me. How to sense danger. How to channel your instincts into action. How to create barriers not just when you're panicking, but when you choose to. He moved toward the door, then paused. But Lena, you need to understand something. The council isn't wrong to fear you. What do you mean? Corvin's expression was grave. Protectors historically have held enormous influence over their charges. Royal children bonded to protectors grew up valuing human life. They made reforms, changed laws. Some even married humans, diluting the bloodlines. He met her eyes. The council sees you as a threat because you are a threat to their power, their traditions, their entire way of life. I don't want to threaten anyone, Lena said. I just want to keep Mira safe. I know, but keeping her safe means raising her, teaching her, shaping who she becomes. Corvin smiled sadly. And that, dear girl, is the most dangerous power of all. He left, and Lena sat in the darkness, listening to Myra's soft breathing. She thought about Elena, who died 300 years ago defending a vampire child. She thought about the prophecy, about the future everyone seemed so certain was written in stone. And she made a promise to herself, there in the dark. She'd learn everything Corvin could teach her. She'd become strong enough to protect Mira from any threat. but she'd also find a way to survive. Because prophecies weren't destiny. They were just warnings about what happened when you gave up. And Lena wasn't ready to give up yet. Training with Corvin was brutal. Every morning before dawn, he appeared in Lena's chambers and put her through exercises that left her gasping and exhausted. He taught her to sense danger by closing her eyes and tracking movement through sound and intuition. He made her practice creating barriers until her hands shook and sweat poured down her face. He drilled her on vampire politics, court protocol, and the subtle ways enemies might strike. Protection isn't just about fighting, he said one morning as Lena collapsed after her fifth failed attempt to maintain a barrier for more than 30 seconds. It's about anticipation, reading a room, knowing who's dangerous before they make their move. Everyone here is dangerous, Lena panted.
True.
But some are more dangerous than others. Corvin helped her to her feet. Lady Saris, for instance. She hasn't made another move since the evaluation. What does that tell you?
Lena thought about it.
That she's planning something?
Exactly.
The quiet ones are always planning. Over the weeks, Lena grew stronger. Her barriers lasted longer. Her instincts sharpened. She could sense Myra's needs from rooms away now, could feel the baby's emotions like they were her own. The bond had deepened into something profound and unshakable. But she also grew fond of Darian in ways she hadn't expected. She saw him late at night, sitting in the nursery, watching Mira sleep with an expression of such tender grief it made Lena's heart ache. She saw him navigating council politics with ruthless efficiency, playing a game of thrones that would have destroyed a lesser person. She saw him with Mira, patient, gentle, devoted, and understood that beneath the cold king was a father desperate to protect the only family he had left. One evening, as they shared a quiet dinner in the royal chambers, something that had become routine, Darian spoke about his wife. Her name was Isadora, he said softly, staring into his wine. She was fierce, brilliant. She could argue circles around the entire council and make them thank her for it, a sad smile. Mira has her eyes. She sounds amazing, Lena said. She was. Darian's voice cracked slightly. And she died because I couldn't save her. Because even with all my power, all my resources, I couldn't stop her from dying in childbirth. Lena reached across the table and took his hand. It was cold. Vampires always were. But Darian didn't pull away. You gave her Mira, Lena said. That's not nothing. Darian's silver eyes met hers, and for a moment, Lena saw past the king to the man beneath, grieving, lonely, carrying impossible weight. Thank you, he whispered, for staying, for caring about her, for he trailed off, but Lena understood. For becoming the family they both desperately needed. The moment broke when Mira cried from the nursery, and they both stood, the connection still humming between them like an unspoken promise. They'd become a unit, a family, and that made what happened next so much worse. The coup came during the Moonstone Festival, a grand celebration held in the palace gardens once a season. Nobles from across the kingdom attended, dressed in their finest, drinking blood wine and dancing under lanterns that floated through the air like fireflies. Darian had wanted to skip it, but Corvin advised against it. Show weakness now and they'll strike, he'd said. You need to appear strong, unbothered. Like Lena's presence changes nothing. So they attended, Darian in formal robes, Lena in a dress of silver silk that Corvin had insisted she wear, and Mira in a tiny gown that made her look like a princess from a storybook. The gardens were breathtaking. Flowers bloomed in impossible colors, their petals glowing softly. Music drifted through the air, played by musicians Lena couldn't see. Fountains ran with wine instead of water, and the nobles danced with supernatural grace that made Lena feel clumsy just watching. But beneath the beauty, Lena felt wrong. The bond hummed with unease. Mira was fussy, refusing to be soothed, her tiny fists clenching Lena's dress. And everywhere Lena looked, she saw nobles watching her with expressions that ranged from curiosity to outright hostility. Something's wrong, Lena whispered to Darian. He scanned the crowd, his expression tightening. I feel it too. Stay close to me. They moved through the gardens, Darian greeting nobles with practiced ease while Lena tried to look calm. But her instinct screamed danger. The pendant at her throat grew warm, and her hands tingled with suppressed magic. Then she saw Lady Cerys. The vampire noblewoman stood near the fountain, surrounded by a cluster of other council members. She was smiling, that cold, predatory smile, and when her eyes met Lena's, something flashed in them. Triumph. Darian, Lena began. The first explosion shattered the music. It came from the palace, a deep, rumbling boom that shook the ground. Nobles screamed and scattered as more explosions followed, fire blooming against the obsidian towers. The palace is under attack, someone shouted. Chaos erupted. Nobles fled in all directions, some toward the palace, others toward the gates. Guards appeared, weapons drawn, but they seemed confused, unsure where the threat was coming from. Darian grabbed Lena's arm. We need to get Mira somewhere safe.
Now.
They ran toward the palace, but guards blocked their path. Guards wearing uniforms Lena didn't recognize. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, the captain said, but he didn't sound sorry. But the council has ordered the princess secured. For her own protection. The council doesn't give orders to my guards, Darian snarled. These aren't your guards anymore. Lady Cerys's voice rang out as she approached, flanked by 24 armed vampires. They serve the kingdom, and the kingdom has decided you're unfit to rule. Darian's eyes blazed. This is treason. This is survival, Lady Cerys gestured, and more guards appeared, surrounding them. You brought a human protector into the heart of our kingdom. You've allowed her to influence the air. You've weakened our bloodline and threatened our future. The council has voted. You're removed from power, effective immediately. You can't. We already have Lady Cerys's smile was victorious. The explosions were a distraction. While you were here, playing at festivals, we secured the palace, your loyal guards, and the treasury. It's over, Darian. Surrender the child, and we'll let you and your pet human live. In exile, of course. Lena felt Darian's rage through the bond, a cold, terrible fury that made the air around him shimmer. You'll have to kill me first, he said softly. That can be arranged. The guards advanced, and Darian moved with blinding speed, his cloak billowing as he struck. But there were too many, and he couldn't fight while protecting Lena and Mira. Lena felt the bond surge, a desperate, primal command. Protect her. Protect her at all costs. Magic exploded from Lena's body. The barrier she created wasn't like before, small, flickering, defensive. This was massive, a dome of brilliant silver light that encompassed her, Mira, and Darian. Guards who touched it were thrown backward, their weapons clattering to the ground. Lady Cerys's eyes widened.
Impossible.
She's not that strong. I told you, Darian said, his voice carrying over the chaos. She's a real protector. And you've made a fatal mistake. Lena could feel the magic pouring through her, channeled by desperation and love and absolute refusal to let anyone hurt Mira. The barrier pulsed with each beat of her heart, and where it touched the ground, intricate patterns of light appeared, ancient symbols that Lena didn't know but somehow understood. She could see everything. Every traitor in the garden, their faces illuminated by the barrier's glow. Every noble who'd pledged loyalty to Lady Cerys. Every guard who'd turned against their king. The bond shows truth. Corvin's voice came from somewhere nearby. Protectors can sense loyalty. Betrayal. They expose what's hidden. And Lena understood. This was her purpose. Not just to shield Mira from physical harm, but to protect her from political threats, from lies, from those who would use her as a pawn. Everyone who supported this coup, Lena said, her voice amplified by magic, is marked by the light. And they were. Every traitor glowed faintly crimson, marked by Lena's magic for all to see. Lady Cerys looked down at her own hands, glowing red, and her face contorted with fury.
You.
But loyal guards were already moving, surrounding the marked nobles, weapons drawn. The coup collapsed in minutes, its supporters exposed and outnumbered. Lena held the barrier until every traitor was secured, and then she let it fall, collapsing to her knees with Mira still safe in her arms. Darian knelt beside her, his expression awed. "You saved us. You saved the kingdom." Lena looked up at him, exhausted but alive. "I saved her. Everything else was just extra." And despite everything, the chaos, the danger, the betrayal, Darian laughed. The trials lasted 3 days. Lena didn't attend. She remained in the royal chambers with Mira, recovering from the massive surge of magic that had exposed the traitors. Corvin stayed with her, monitoring her condition and making sure she ate, slept, and didn't push herself too hard. "You channeled more power than most protectors manage in a lifetime," he said, mixing herbs into tea that smelled terrible but made her headaches fade. "Your body needs time to recover. What's happening out there?" Lena asked, nodding toward the window where she could see the palace towers against the perpetual twilight sky. "Justice," Corvin said simply. "Lady Saris and her co-conspirators are being judged. Some will face execution. Others, exile. A few might survive with lesser punishments if they can prove they were coerced." He paused. "Darian is being thorough. He can't afford to show mercy, not after this." Lena felt a pang of sympathy for Darian. He'd trusted those nobles, worked with them for years, and they'd betrayed him. It had to hurt, even if he'd never admit it. On the 4th day, Darian finally returned to the chambers. He looked exhausted, truly exhausted in a way Lena had never seen before. His silver eyes were dimmed, his movements slower, the weight of kingship pressing visibly on his shoulders. "It's done," he said quietly, sinking into a chair. "The coup leaders have been dealt with. The council has been restructured. And the palace is secure." "Good," Lena said. She was sitting in the nursery, watching Mira play with her cloth doll. The baby seemed oblivious to the chaos that had surrounded them, more interested in trying to bite the doll's button eyes. Darian watched them for a long moment. "The new council wants to meet with you." Lena tensed. "Why?" To apologize, a ghost of a smile crossed Darian's face. "And to officially recognize the protector bond. They saw what you did. How you exposed the traitors, protected me and Mira, saved the kingdom from civil war. They can't deny what you are anymore.
So I'm
accepted." More than that, Darian pulled a scroll from his robes and handed it to her. "The council has drafted new laws. For the first time in 400 years, protectors have legal status.
rights.
Protection under royal decree." Lena unrolled the scroll, her hands shaking slightly. The formal language was dense, but the meaning was clear. She wasn't just tolerated anymore. She was recognized, valued, given authority to act in Myra's best interests, with full backing of the crown. "This is because of what I did at the festival," Lena said slowly. "This is because of who you are," Darian corrected. "The festival just proved it to everyone else." Mira chose that moment to notice her father and let out a happy squeal, reaching for him with both arms. Darian crossed to the nursery and picked her up, and the baby immediately grabbed his hair, tugging with delighted giggles. "She's getting stronger," Darian observed, gently extracting his hair from her grip. "Soon she'll be walking,
Talking.
growing into her power." "And I'll be with her," Lena said softly. "Every step, for as long as she needs me." Darian looked at her, and something shifted in his expression, something warm and grateful and perhaps a little hopeful. "The council also suggested something else," he said carefully. "They think Mira needs stability, a proper household, not just a protector," but he hesitated. "A family." Lena's heart stuttered. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you've already become part of our family, whether we intended it or not." Darian set Mira down gently, then crossed to where Lena sat. "You eat dinner with us. You comfort Mira when she cries. You've risked your life for her, for us, more times than I can count. You're not just her protector, Lena. You're He trailed off, but Lena understood what he couldn't quite say. She'd become something like a mother to Mira, and something like a partner to Darian. Not in the romantic sense, at least not yet, but in the way that mattered. They were a unit, a team, two people bound together by love for the same tiny, impossible child. The council can formalize it, Darian continued. Give you a title, a position in the household that goes beyond protector. You'd have authority, resources, protection. A real home. I already have a home, Lena said, gesturing around the chambers.
Here. With you.
With her. Darian's expression softened. Then make it official.
Stay.
Not because the bond demands it, but because you choose to. And there it was, the heart of everything.
Choice.
Lena thought about Ashton's books, about the prophecy that said protectors died defending their charges. She thought about Elena, who died 300 years ago but had chosen that death rather than let Corvin suffer. She thought about every protector in history who'd made the same choice. And she realized the prophecy wasn't about fate. It was about love. Protectors didn't die because magic forced them to. They died because they chose to, because the people they protected mattered more than their own lives. That was terrifying. But it was also beautiful. I choose to stay, Lena said. Not because I have to. Because I want to. Darian exhaled, relief washing over his face. Then we'll make the announcement tomorrow. You'll be formally recognized as Myra's protector and a member of the royal household, he paused. And Lena? Thank you. For everything. Before Lena could respond, Mira crawled over and grabbed her sleeve. That same sleeve she'd bitten all those weeks ago at the tavern. The baby looked up at her with those amber eyes and smiled. And Lena knew, with absolute certainty, that she'd made the right choice. The formal announcement was held in the throne room, with the new council in attendance and nobles from across the kingdom watching. Darian stood on the dais in his full regalia, every inch the king, while Lena stood beside him holding Mira. Let it be known throughout the kingdom, Darian proclaimed, his voice carrying through the vast chamber, that the human Lena of Millbrook is hereby recognized as protector to Princess Mira, heir to the throne of Waitress. She is granted full authority to act in the princess's best interests, with the backing of the crown and the blessing of the council. The nobles applauded, some enthusiastically, others grudgingly, but all of them respectfully. The message was clear. Anyone who threatened Lena threatened the throne itself. After the ceremony, as they returned to the royal chambers, Corvin was waiting. Well done, he said, smiling. Elena would have been proud. I'm not her, Lena said. I don't know if I'll ever be as brave as she was. You already are, Corvin said gently. You just don't see it yet, he bowed to Mira, who giggled and waved at him. Take care of this one, little protector. She's going to change the world someday. We both will, Lena said, looking at Mira. Together. That night, after Mira was asleep, Lena stood at the window overlooking Waitress. The city glowed with its crimson lanterns, beautiful and strange and now, impossibly, home. Darian joined her, standing close enough that their shoulders almost touched. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Staying in that tavern? Letting Mira bite your sleeve? Lena thought about everything she'd lost, her simple life, her anonymity, her certainty that she'd grow old in some quiet village somewhere. And she thought about everything she'd gained, purpose, family, magic she'd never known existed, and a tiny vampire princess who'd grabbed onto her heart and refused to let go. No, Lena said. I don't regret it at all. Darian smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine and so different from the cold king everyone else saw. Good, he said. Because I don't think we could survive without you now. You won't have to, Lena promised. And she meant it. The prophecy had said protectors died defending their charges. Maybe that was still true. Maybe one day, Lena would face that choice, her life or Myra's.
But today wasn't that day.
Today, she was alive. Mira was safe. And together with Darian, they were building something new, a kingdom where humans and vampires could coexist, where ancient bonds were honored rather than feared, where a waitress from Millbrook could become a protector and help raise a princess. It wasn't the ending the prophecy predicted. It was better, because they'd chosen it themselves. Mira stirred in the nursery and Lena automatically moved toward her, Darian following. They stood together over the crib, watching the baby sleep, and for a moment everything was perfect. "She's going to be amazing," Darian whispered. "She already is," Lena said. And as Myra's tiny hand found Lena's finger even in sleep, that same instinctive grab that had started everything, Lena knew the truth. Protectors didn't just guard their charges from danger. They saved them by choosing love over fear, hope over prophecy, and family over fate. And that was the most powerful magic of all.
The end.